Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing something that, frankly, feels a little bit like intellectual off-roading.
That's a good way to put it.
Usually when we pull a stack of sources for a show, there's a pretty clear genre. It's all history of Rome or it's all modern neuroscience.
Right, there's a theme, a clear through line.
Exactly. But today, the stack is split right down the middle. It looks like two completely different podcasts just collided.
It really does, doesn't it?
It's jarring. On my left, we have a stack of sources that are incredibly dense. I mean, esoteric and really, really technical.
And ancient.
And ancient. We're talking about the mechanics of life after death, drawn from these old Hindu texts, Vedanta, the Upanishads, some Tantra. And I really want to emphasize that word mechanics, because this isn't the usual, clouds and harps kind of narrative.
No, not at all. It reads like an engineering manual.
It does. It treats the soul less like a ghost and more like a packet of data that's moving through a network.
A very complex, very old network.
And then sitting right next to that ancient stack, we have this other pile, which is a very modern, very aggressive guide to life optimization.
The polar opposite on the surface.
Completely. We have sources on biohacking, corporate warfare, game theory, negotiation tactics, essentially how to build a, quote, dangerous and competent human being in the 21st century.
Yeah.
So the challenge for us today, and for you listening, is finding the connective tissue here.
Yeah.
How do we get from the metaphysics of the deathbed to the politics of the boardroom without giving everyone whiplash?
Well, the connection is actually surprisingly robust.
Right.
It all comes down to the concept of residue and mechanics.
Residue, okay.
The whole premise of this deep dive is that existence, whether you are, currently inhabiting a body or you're in the process of exiting one, it's a system.
Yeah.
A system of energy transfer.
It's all physics.
It's all physics. It operates on rules, cause and effect, action and reaction, and everything you do, everything you think leaves a residue.
So what we're looking at today is a kind of user manual for existence that spans both sides of the veil.
That is the argument. The sources suggest you can't really optimize your life if you don't understand the ultimate context. And that context is the mechanics of your exit of death.
And the reverse is also true.
And the reverse is true. You can't have what they'd call a good death, a high-quality exit where you don't, crash the system, if you haven't optimized your biological and social hardware while you're alive.
I see. So the way you live directly impacts the way you die.
Yeah.
Not just morally, but mechanically.
Mechanically. So what we're going to do is look at what exactly dies when you die, where the software goes, and then we're going to pivot to how you can tune your machine right now so you can handle the G-force of that departure.
I like that framing. We're figuring out the destination so we can drive the car better today. Okay, let's do it. Let's start with the heavy stuff.
Let's.
The source material opens with a pretty provocative stance. Death is not a mystery, and it is not a void. It is a precise mechanical process of separation.
That's the absolute core of the Vedantic framework. In the West, we largely operate on a kind of binary switch model.
You're on and then you're off.
You are on in and then you are off. It's a black screen. But these texts, specifically things like the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and some tantric literature, they argue that death is simply the separation of one type of container from another.
A shedding process.
It's a shedding process, not an ending, like a snake shedding its skin. The snake is still there.
Okay, so to really grasp that, we have to define what you actually are in this context.
Right.
Because if I ask the average person, who are you? They point to their chest.
They point to their body.
They point to the meat, the bone, the brain. But the source argues that the physical body is just the outermost layer, right? It's just the first container.
Right. The texts outline 3 distinct bodies, or shariras, that every entity inhabits at the same time. The first one is the one we're all familiar with, the gross body, or stula sharira.
The meat suit. I saw that in the notes, and it clicks.
It's the perfect name for it, the meat suit. It's composed of the 5 fundamental elements, earth, water, fire, air, space.
And its job is just to interact with the world.
Its function is purely structural. It's the avatar in the video game. It allows you to interact with the physical world, and its fate is very simple and completely non-negotiable.
If drained.
It is dropped, it returns to ash or dust. It has no consciousness of its own. It's just a vehicle.
So it's the hardware. If I smash my laptop, the plastic and the chips are broken. But that doesn't necessarily mean my data, my documents, my software. That stuff isn't gone.
That is the perfect analogy, and we're going to keep coming back to it. Because the data lives in the second layer, the subtle body.
The Sukshma
The
Sharira.
Sukshma Sharira. This contains your operating system, your OS. It holds your personality, your memories, your sensory powers, your vitality, what they call prana, and your mind.
So, wait. My mind isn't my brain.
In this model, no. The brain is the CPU, the processor. The mind is the software that runs on it. The mind is part of the subtle body.
So the crucial distinction the source makes is that when the gross body dies, the subtle body, it just unplugs.
It unplugs and remains totally intact.
So the meanness of me, my neuroticism, my love for jazz, my memories of third grade, that doesn't dissolve.
It persists, 100%. The interface is broken, the laptop is smashed, but the signal, the data stream, it continues. This subtle body is what becomes the traveler, or in some cases, the ghost.
Okay, we'll get to ghosts. But there's a third layer, which is even deeper, the causal body.
The Krana Sharira.
And if we're using the computer analogy, this is the hard drive, or the cloud storage.
Think of it as the deep storage, the cloud, the server farm. It's the seed state. It houses the Sanchita karma.
Which is all of it.
All of it. The total accumulation of every action, every thought, every intent you have ever generated across potentially thousands of lifetimes.
Wow.
It's the ultimate hard drive that travels with the subtle body. It's the fuel tank, but it's also the flight plan. It determines the trajectory of where that subtle body goes next.
So, mechanically speaking, death is just the separation of body number 1
The gross body.
from bodies number 2 and 3, the subtle and the causal.
That's it. The texts treat it as a pure physics problem. It's the severing of a tether, an umbilical cord.
And because it's a physical process involving energy, it's not instantaneous. There's a shutdown sequence.
A very specific shutdown sequence.
Let's walk through that. I was just struck by how clinical the description is. It's not poetic. It maps almost perfectly to what, palliative care nurses describe.
It's very observational. The text calls it the withdrawal of prana, or vital energy.
And it describes the elements that make up the gross body just collapsing into one another.
Right. It begins with the earth element dissolving into the water element.
And what does that feel like for the person?
Subjectively, for the dying person, this manifests as an immense heaviness. They lose control of their limbs. The body feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. They feel like they are sinking into the bed or into the ground.
Okay. Then water dissolves into fire.
The fluids in the body begin to dry up. The mouth gets parched, the skin feels dry, but at the same time, the internal fire, the metabolic fire, begins to fail. So a deep coldness creeps in from the extremities.
Hands and feet first.
Hands and feet first, moving inward. Then the fire element dissolves into the air element.
So digestion stops?
Digestion stops completely, the body heat vanishes, and the breath becomes erratic and shallow. The death rattle that people talk about is part of this stage.
And finally, air dissolves into space, or ether.
Right. This is where the connection to the outer world is almost completely severed. And the source notes something fascinating about the senses here. It says that hearing is the absolute last faculty to shut down.
That's been observed, right, in modern medicine.
It aligns perfectly with modern observations in hospice care. Speech goes, then sight blurs, touch numbs, but the auditory channel, it stays open.
Which is why so many traditions.
Exactly. This is why traditions like the Tibetan or Hindu death rites insist on chanting or speaking instructions directly into the ear of the dying.
You are literally talking to the pilot as they are ejecting from the plane.
That's exactly it. You can still guide them. You can still give them instructions for the journey, even if they look completely comatose. You're talking to the subtle body, not the gross body.
Speaking of ejecting, let's talk about the force that actually pushes you out. The source gives it a name, the Udana Vayu.
Right. So in the living body, there are 5 major currents of prana, or energy. They're called the Vayus. Most of them circulate life into the tissues to keep you functioning, digestion, circulation, that kind of thing.
They're pulling energy in and distributing it.
Exactly. But at the moment of death, one of them, the Udana Vayu, which governs upward movement like speech, it reverses polarity.
It pushes instead of pulls.
It becomes an ejection seat. It gathers the subtle body, that whole software package of mind and memory, and it pushes it out of the physical shell with considerable force.
And the exit door matters. This is where it started to sound like a video game mechanic to me, but the text is very, very serious about it.
Oh, it's critical. The trajectory of the soul, its immediate next destination, depends entirely on which orifice it exits the body from.
And this is about, spiritual gravity.
It's about hydraulic pressure, essentially. If the energy is heavy and dense, it seeks a lower exit. The source details three main exit points.
Okay, what's the first one? The lowest one.
The first are the lower chakras, specifically the anus or the genitals. An exit through these gates indicates the entity is heavily weighed down by, dense earthly instincts.
Greed, gluttony.
Lust, gluttony, extreme rage, obsession. It implies a descent into what the text would call lower or hellish or obsessive states of consciousness. A bad trajectory.
Then there's the standard exit.
The standard one, the most common, the mouth or the nose. This is for the average person who, did their duty, had a family, but was still attached to the world.
It's neutral.
It's neutral. It implies a return to the human realm for another life, or perhaps a trip to the ancestral planes. It's the main highway.
But then there's the high exit, the express lane.
The express lane out of the system. This is the Brahmarandra, which is the crown of the head.
The soft spot you can feel in a baby's head.
The fontanelle, exactly. An exit through this point indicates that the energy, the prana, was moving upward throughout life. It implies high spiritual attainment, detachment, and possibly liberation, or moksha.
Escaping the simulation entirely.
That's the goal. And there are these, maybe apocryphal, maybe not, accounts of advanced ascetics or yogis whose skulls actually crack at the top at the moment of death.
Because the energy release is that powerful.
The pressure of that energetic release is so focused and so intense it cracks the bone.
That is wild. Okay, so you've ejected, you're out of the body. But you aren't just floating in a vacuum, you're carrying luggage.
A lot of luggage.
The source calls it vasanas, residue. This seems to be the most critical concept for the listener to understand.
It is everything. Vasanas translates roughly to smell or fragrance or impression.
Like a scent that clings to you.
Exactly. The classic analogy is a jar that held something potent, like curry or asafoetida. Even after you wash the jar 100 times, the faint smell of the curry remains.
What?
Your subtle body carries the smell of how you lived. Every thought, every action, every habit leaves an impression of vasana. And these impressions are what you are made of after you die.
And this residue, this smell, it determines your buoyancy, your spiritual buoyancy.
It determines your density. That's the key. If you spend your life cultivating heavy emotions, hatred, fear, greed, extreme attachment to material things, your subtle body is literally dense. It's what they call tamasic.
And gravity applies to ghosts.
Gravity applies to ghosts. You sink. It's not a punishment, it's physics. You are drawn to environments that match your frequency. You gravitate toward lower vibration environments.
So if you were a hateful person, you're drawn to a realm of hate.
You are. Whereas if you cultivated light or saktic qualities, knowledge, peace, compassion, detachment, your subtle body is less dense. It floats.
You rise.
You rise. And here is the terrifying part. The part that the source underscores again and again.
What's that?
You cannot fake your state of mind at death.
You can't just have a deathbed conversion and be fine.
No. You will think about what you practice thinking about.
Yeah.
If you spent 40 years practicing anxiety and worry, at the moment of the shutdown, your default setting will be panic.
And that panic is a heavy residue.
It's an anchor. And that panic creates the frequency that binds you. You can't cram for the final exam. The exam is how you lived every single day.
So this is the ghost glitch the outline mentions. The transition isn't always smooth. Sometimes people get stuck right at the exit.
Right. This is what the texts call the preta state. Immediately after ejection, the entity can be intensely disoriented. It's cut off from the physical world, but it still possesses all the desires of the physical body.
So it has the software for hunger.
But no stomach to digest food. It has the software for addiction, but no biology to satisfy the craving. It has the desire for warmth, but no body to feel it.
That sounds like a specific kind of torture.
The source describes it as a burning thirst or a state of perpetual panic and confusion. This is where the rituals come in.
The funerals. Antieshti Pindadan.
Yes. We tend to think of funerals as psychological closure for the living, but the source frames them as energy management technology for the dead.
What does that mean? How does that work?
The offering of water and rice balls, the pindas, is not just symbolic. It's believed to provide a specific energetic frequency, a kind of subtle sustenance that calms the panic of the newly disembodied subtle body.
So it's like sending a care package to a refugee in a war zone.
That's a great way to put it. It gives them the energy and the stability to continue their journey and not get stuck. It creates a kind of tunnel for them away from the earth plane.
So without that, or if the death was especially violent, like a suicide or a murder, the entity doesn't move on.
That's where you get the glitch. Sudden violent death is a major glitch because the entity often doesn't even realize it's dead. It's confused. It's replaying the trauma.
And what about attachment?
Deep attachment is the other major trap. If you die obsessing over your house or your money or a person, your subtle body refuses to leave. It stays in the house.
But it can't interact with anything.
It can't. And because it has no energy source of its own anymore, no prana from breath and food, it becomes parasitic. It has to feed
On point.
on the vitality of the living. This is why these entities, these ghosts, are said to hang around high-energy discharge areas. Bars, nightclubs, hospitals, battlefields.
Cremation grounds.
Especially cremation grounds. They try to feed off the intense emotional energy and the vitality of living people.
The hungry ghost archetype.
Precisely. And this explains the iconography of the god Shiva. Why is he the lord of the cremation ground, covered in ash, surrounded by these spirits?
Because he's the master of that domain.
He's the master of the Buddhas, the ghosts. He represents the only thing that cannot be burned, the ash. The ultimate residue-free reality. He brings order to that chaotic transitional state.
Okay, so let's assume we avoid the ghost trap, we get the care package, we move on. We enter what the outline calls the long journey.
Right.
The source outlines a kind of cosmic traffic system with two main highways, the solar path and the lunar path.
That's right. The path of light, which is the sun, and the path of smoke, which is the moon.
Let's start with the solar path. That's the exclusive one.
That's the one-way ticket. The fast track. It's for the elite, those with immense discipline, lifelong celibacy, and a deep, unwavering focus on the ultimate reality who have burned off almost all their residue while they were still alive.
The serious yogis and sages.
Exactly. They go to the realm of the sun, and from there, they eventually merge with the creator, with Brahman. They don't come back. They've exited the cycle of rebirth.
But most of us, we're on the other path.
The vast, vast majority of us are on the lunar path. The path of smoke, the great recycling loop.
And this leads to a place called Pitruloka.
The realm of the ancestors, which is symbolically located on the moon. And this part is fascinating. The source describes it as an economy, a literal economy.
And the currency isn't money. It's Shraddha.
It's Shraddha, which is a kind of energy, a frequency of faith and remembrance that is transmitted from the descendants on Earth.
So it's a trade deal.
It is a cosmic trade deal. The living perform ceremonies and rituals to transmit this Shraddha energy to their ancestors. This energy sustains them in Pitruloka. It's their food.
And in exchange.
In exchange, the ancestors, the Pitras, use their influence to bless the family line back on Earth with fertility, health, protection, and prosperity. It's a symbiotic relationship.
So if the living stop the payments?
The ancestors starve. They lose their standing in Pitruloka and are forced to reincarnate sooner.
This explains the massive cultural emphasis on having children, especially sons, in these traditions. It's not just about carrying on the family name.
It's not just about legacy. It's about having a battery charger on the other side. It's your metaphysical retirement plan. If your family line breaks, you fall out of Pitruloka.
Wow. Okay, so now the source also mentions these. Rehabilitation centers, heaven and hell. But it completely flips the script on the standard Western Christian understanding of these places.
Right, because in this framework, a finite action, your single life, cannot possibly produce an infinite result, like eternal damnation or eternal paradise. It's mathematically impossible.
So hell isn't forever.
Naraka, or hell, is essentially a laundromat, a cosmic purification center. It's where you go if your residue is particularly heavy and dense. You go there to have it burned off through intense, often painful experiences.
But you get out.
Once the weight is gone, you leave. It's a temporary state designed to purge the system.
And heaven? Svarga? It's not the final goal either.
Not even close. Heaven is described as a golden cage. It's a cosmic vacation resort. It's where you go to spend your good karma points, your punya.
So it's like a cosmic credit card.
Exactly. You enjoy celestial pleasures, you have unimaginable luxuries, but, and this is the big catch, you are depleting your savings account with every second of enjoyment.
You're spinning it down.
Every moment of pleasure in heaven debits your karmic account, and when the balance hits zero, you are unceremoniously evicted. You fall straight back to Earth to start again.
Which is why the really wise sages actively avoid heaven.
They see it as the ultimate distraction. It's a trap. It just delays the real work. They don't want an upgrade within the simulation. They want to exit the simulation entirely.
The goal is moksha, liberation, breaking the cycle.
Always.
But for those who do fall back, the source describes the mechanics of rebirth in this really interesting section called The Doctrine of the Five Fires. It sounds remarkably scientific.
It's stunning. It links the ecological cycle on Earth to the spiritual cycle. It describes the soul falling from the lunar realm as rain.
Literally falling in raindrops.
Literally. The soul is carried in the water, it's absorbed into the soil, and then taken up by plants, grains, rice, vegetables. The soul now lies dormant in the food.
Okay, then a man eats the food.
A man eats the plant. The soul enters his system and is synthesized into semen. The text is very, very literal and biological about this. The soul is now riding in the biological carrier.
And then it enters the womb, which is the fifth fire, and conception occurs.
The final stage of the transfer, the soul is delivered to a new, gross body.
And the choice of parents isn't random, is it? It's not like you just land in the first available womb.
Absolutely not. It's magnetic. The frequency of your vasanas, your residue, magnetically attracts you to parents who have a similar karmic and genetic frequency.
So if you have the residue of a musician,
You will be vibrationally pulled toward a genetic line that creates musicians. If you have the residue of an angry warrior, you'll be drawn to a family and a culture that values that. In a very real sense, you get the parents you deserve.
that is a staggering concept. Before we pivot to the living part of this, I want to touch on the mistakes to avoid. The source is very clear that how we, the living, handle death can seriously mess up this machinery for the one who's passed.
Yes. The biggest error for the living is excessive grief.
That feels so counterintuitive.
It does. But the source argues that uncontrollable weeping, the mucus, the tears, and especially the intense emotional clutching, "Don't leave me," it acts as a tether, an energetic rope.
You're holding them back.
You're binding the departing soul to the earth plane because they feel that pull. They can't move on. The greatest act of love in this context is to mentally and emotionally release them, to say, "Go, we'll be okay, you are free."
And what about for the dying person themselves? What mistakes can they make?
Unfulfilled promises are a big one. If you lie on your deathbed and make a vow, "I will never leave you," or "I will always watch over this house," you are signing a contract that can keep you earthbound as a ghost.
But the source saves its biggest warning for suicide.
It's seen as a catastrophic engineering failure.
Right. I mean, from a Western perspective, it's often seen as an escape from pain.
But that's the error. You destroy the gross body to escape pain, but the pain, the depression, the anguish, the trauma that lives in the subtle body, in the mind.
So you destroy the vehicle.
But the driver, who is screaming in agony, is still there. Now you are stuck in that disoriented preta state with all the same emotional pain, but with no physical body to process it through, no brain to get medication for, no hands to change your situation.
You're just stuck with the raw pain.
You just have to wait out your allotted natural lifespan in that void as a ghost. It's considered a massive, massive error.
Okay. That brings us to the pivot. Because everything we've talked about,
Yep.
the residue, the exit doors, avoiding the ghost state, the ultimate goal is a high exit.
Zero residue.
And to achieve that, you can't just hope for the best at the end. You need to build a machine, a body and a mind that is disciplined, detached, and highly optimized.
And that's the pivot. We're shifting from how to die well to how to live dangerously. The argument from the other half of our source stack is that if you want to handle the high voltage of death, you need to build a chassis that's capable of handling high voltage in life.
Which brings us to biooptimization.
Exactly, how to tune the hardware.
And the sources go straight for the most fundamental system, the autonomic nervous system, specifically breathing. It argues most of us are doing it completely wrong.
We are a culture of chronic overbreathers and mouth breathers. That's the diagnosis. And we have this obsession with oxygen. We think more oxygen is always better.
But we neglect the other side of the equation, carbon dioxide.
We neglect CO2, which feels counterintuitive, right? Isn't CO2 the waste product we're trying to get rid of?
Yeah, that's what I learned in high school biology.
It is a waste product, but it is also the delivery mechanism. This is a physiological law called the Bohr effect. Oxygen binds to hemoglobin in your red blood cells. To get that oxygen to release from the hemoglobin and actually get into your brain, your muscles, your organs, you need a certain level of CO2 present in the blood.
So CO2 is the key that unlocks the oxygen.
It's the key. If you overbreathe, shallow, rapid mouth breathing, you blow off too much CO2. Your blood is saturated with oxygen, but it can't deliver it. Your cells are suffocating.
And that triggers a panic response in the brain.
It triggers the fight or flight response. So a lot of what we experience as chronic low-grade anxiety is actually just bad respiratory chemistry. It's a hardware malfunction.
Okay, so what's the fix?
Yeah.
The source recommends something pretty aggressive to start. Mouth taping at night.
Literally taping your mouth shut while you sleep.
How does that work?
You use a gentle medical tape, like micropore tape. It forces you to breathe through your nose all night. Nasal breathing is critical because it boosts your body's production of nitric oxide.
And nitric oxide is a vasodilator.
It opens up all your blood vessels and airways. This improves oxygen delivery, it lowers blood pressure, it deepens your sleep, and it prevents that waking up tired feeling. More importantly, it trains your nervous system to remain calm, to stay in the parasympathetic rest and digest state.
Okay, so that's for the night. What about for the waking hours, when we're under stress?
For that, the source suggests buteyko breathing, which is a form of air hunger training.
Air hunger, that sounds unpleasant.
It is, at first. The practice is simple. You exhale normally, you pinch your nose, and you walk as many paces as you can until you feel a strong but not overwhelming urge to breathe.
And what's that doing?
You are training your brain's chemoreceptors, your CO2 alarm system, to be less sensitive. You are building up your tolerance to CO2. You're building your tolerance to the feeling of stress itself.
It's like high-altitude training for your anxiety response.
That is exactly what it is. And think about the connection back to death. What's the final stage? The withdrawal of prana, the cessation of breath. If you panic when your breath stops, you create heavy residue and get a bad exit.
But if you have trained for air hunger, you remain calm. You recognize the sensation without panicking.
You've practiced it. You've decoupled the sensation from the fear response.
The source also recommends thermal stress, deliberately freezing and burning yourself.
Hormesis. The principle that a small, controlled dose of a stressor makes the entire system stronger. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
So, on the heat side, we're talking about saunas.
High heat sauna use. The data on this is incredible. Getting into a sauna that's over 80 degrees Celsius, or about 175 Fahrenheit, for 20 minutes 4 more times a week, it triggers a massive release of heat shock proteins.
And these repair the body.
They repair damaged cells, they clear out misfolded proteins, and it's been shown to dramatically lower all-cause mortality, especially from cardiovascular events. It mimics the benefits of moderate exercise.
And then on the other end, the cold.
Yeah.
The ice bath trend.
It's more than just a trend here. The source argues the cold shock from an ice bath does a few critical things. It releases a massive, sustained spike in norepinephrine and dopamine, which drives focus and improves mood for hours afterward.
It also changes your fat.
Right. It converts your white adipose tissue, the storage fat, into more metabolically active beige or brown fat, which actually burns calories to generate heat.
But what's the spiritual application? What's the residue connection?
It's the practice of the override. You are voluntarily entering a state of extreme physical stress. Your body is screaming, "Get out, we are dying," and you are forcing your conscious mind to override the panic. You stay calm. You control your breath.
You are practicing the separation of sensation and reaction.
You are building the muscle of detachment.
That is the perfect bridge to the next section, because if you can control your reaction to freezing cold water, you can learn to control your reaction to a toxic boss or a corporate backstabber.
Exactly.
The source dives deep into social and corporate warfare, using something called the Gervais principle.
Yeah, this is a very cynical, but, the source argues, a very effective map of the modern organization. It divides every company into 3 distinct layers: sociopaths, the clueless, and losers.
Okay, let's unpack that, because loser sounds pretty bad.
The terminology is intentionally ironic. Let's start at the top. The sociopaths. These are the leaders, the executives. They have little to no empathy. They view the company and the people in it as a game to be won. They drive the vision, but they're playing for power.
Then you have the clueless in the middle.
The clueless are the middle management. They are the useful idiots of the corporation. They lack political intelligence. They actually believe the rah-rah mission statements. They work weekends for no extra pay. And they are constantly frustrated because they don't realize the game is rigged against them. They think hard work is enough.
And then at the bottom, you have the losers.
The losers in this framework are actually the most economically rational players in the game.
Yeah.
They have realized that the deal, I give you my entire life, you give me a modest salary, is a bad deal.
So they check out.
They do the bare minimum required not to get fired, and they dedicate their actual life energy to their hobbies, their families, their side hustles. They have detached from the corporate game.
So in the context of our residue theme, the clueless manager is accumulating massive amounts of residue stress, resentment, attachment to a title, that means nothing.
While the loser is practicing detachment every single day, they're reducing their residue.
So the advice is, don't be clueless. If you were going to play the game, either play to win, like a sociopath, strategically, or check out and find your meaning elsewhere, like a loser, stoically. Don't be the victim in the middle.
That's the core insight.
Okay, for those who are stuck in the middle or has to deal with the sociopaths, the source suggests a defensive tactic called the gray rock method.
This is pure defensive warfare. Narcissists, manipulators, and corporate climbers, they feed on reaction. They want drama. They want your emotional energy. If you give them a big reaction, they latch onto you.
So how do you stop it?
You become as boring as a gray rock. One-word answers. No emotion in your voice. No personal details. You starve them of the energy they are trying to harvest from you. They eventually get bored and go find a more interesting target.
It's the exact same mechanic as the ghosts. Don't feed the parasites.
The energetic laws apply everywhere, from the bardo to the boardroom.
The source also talks about networking, but it flips the conventional wisdom on its head. We usually think we need to constantly nurture our close friends.
Right, our strong ties.
But the source says the real power is in our weak ties.
This is based on solid research. Your close friends, your strong ties, they all know the same people you know. They have the same information you have. There is no new opportunity, no alpha in that circle.
But weak ties.
Weak ties, acquaintances, people you met once at a conference, a friend of a friend, they are bridges to entirely different worlds, different information networks. They are the ones who bring you new job offers, new ideas, new perspectives.
So the advice is to cultivate those weak ties and to be the broker.
Be the broker. Find the structural holes in your network. If you know all the artists and you know all the accountants and those two groups don't talk to each other, you become the bridge. You connect them. That is where you create immense value.
Okay, let's move to financial mechanics. Because nothing creates heavy residue like poverty, debt, and financial anxiety.
It's a massive anchor.
The source advocates for something called the barbell strategy.
Yes, this comes from Nassim Taleb. The core idea is to avoid the middle. The middle is where the average investor gets completely slaughtered. Moderate risk portfolios are a lie. They just expose you to catastrophic downside risk without much upside.
So what does the barbell look like?
It's extreme. You put 90% or even 95% of your assets in boring, ultra-safe things. Cash, treasury bills, maybe some gold. Stuff that absolutely cannot go to zero. You will not get rich, but you will not go broke.
And the other end of the barbell,
Yeah.
the other 10%.
Maximum risk. Asymmetric bets, crypto, angel investing in startups, highly volatile options, things that have a high probability of going to zero.
But a small probability of going 100x or 1000x.
Exactly. You cap your downside. The most you can lose is that 10%, but you leave your upside completely infinite.
And the goal here isn't just about accumulation. The source talks about the importance of FU money.
FU money is a state of being. It's about liquidity. It means having enough cash on hand, say 6 to 12 months of living expenses, that you can say no to any situation. A bad boss, a bad deal, a bad relationship.
Liquidity is freedom.
It is the ultimate negotiation tactic. If you need the deal to pay your rent, the sociopath across the table can smell your fear. You will lose. But if you have your FU fund, you are indifferent. And in any negotiation, the person who cares less wins.
Speaking of negotiation, the source gives us a very specific tactical model, the Ackerman model.
Yeah, this comes from FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss. It's a way to hack the other person's brain using very specific numbers to make it seem like you're at your absolute limit.
So you never use a round number.
Never. If you offer $10,000, it looks like a guess. If you offer $10,350, it looks like you did a precise calculation. The model suggests you start with a low ball anchor, say 65% of your target price, then make 3 more raises in decreasing increments, maybe to 85%, then 95%, then finally your target price of 100%, and you throw in a non-monetary item to signal that you are completely tapped out of cash.
It creates the illusion that you've been squeezed dry.
Precisely. And the other killer phrase from Voss is, how am I supposed to do that?
Tactical empathy.
Exactly. When someone makes an unreasonable demand, don't get angry and fight back. Just ask them, gently and with genuine curiosity, how am I supposed to do that?
And it forces them to solve your problem.
It forces their brain to start working on your side of the negotiation. You turn your opponent into your mentor. It's brilliant.
We've covered so much ground. We've gone from the death rattle to the negotiating table. But it all seems to come back to the mind. And the source warns us about our information diet.
Our mental diet. It's as important as our physical diet. The heuristic to use here is the Lindy effect.
Explain Explain them.
The Lindy effect states that for non-perishable things like ideas, books, or technologies, the expected future lifespan is equal to its current age.
So a book that has been relevant for 2,000 years.
Like the Upanishads we're talking about, will likely still be relevant for another 2,000 years. It has proven its value. But a news headline from this morning, or a tweet, its life expectancy is maybe another few hours.
So stop doom scrolling.
Stop eating mental junk food. The 24-hour news cycle is designed for one purpose: to agitate you, to trigger your anxiety and keep you hooked. It's designed to create that heavy residue of fear and anger we talked about at the very beginning. Ignore it.
Okay, finally, we have to land the plane. The source talks about environmental design and the concept of anti-fragility.
These are about setting up your life for success. Environmental design is the acknowledgement that your willpower is weak. You are not as strong as you think you are. Your environment dictates your behavior.
So change the environment, not yourself.
Change the environment. If you want to stop checking your phone all the time, turn the screen to grayscale. It strips the dopamine out of the visual interface and makes it boring. If you want to work out more, put the kettlebell right in the middle of your doorway so you have to trip over it.
Reduce the friction for good habits. Increase it for bad ones.
That's the 20-second rule. Make your desired habits 20 seconds easier to start and your undesired habits 20 seconds harder. It works.
And the final mindset, anti-fragility.
This is the mindset for the truly dangerous human. We hear a lot about resilience. Resilience is just resisting a shock and bouncing back to where you were.
But anti-fragility is different.
Anti-fragility is getting better because of the shock. It's post-traumatic growth. Things that are anti-fragile feed on chaos. When chaos hits, you lose the job, you get sick, the market crashes. The anti-fragile mindset doesn't just endure it. It asks, how can I use this energy? What new opportunity does this chaos create?
Chaos is a liquidity event for opportunity.
That's the frame.
Which brings us to the final philosophical anchor of this entire stack, amor fati.
Love your fate. And not just, tolerate your fate or accept your fate.
Love it.
Love it. Every obstacle, every betrayal, every death, every setback, it's the fuel for the fire. It is the curriculum you needed. If you can genuinely learn to love whatever happens, you become unbeatable. You have zero residue.
And that takes us all the way back to the beginning, to the deathbed audit. I want you, the listener, to imagine you are back at that moment we started with. The Udana Vayu is kicking in. The elements are dissolving. The senses are shutting down.
In that moment, as you are ejecting, you won't care about the awkward email you sent in 2024. You won't care about the promotion you missed.
You will care about one thing.
The weight of your residue.
You will worry if you were too timid. You will worry if you didn't swing hard enough.
The danger is not in failing. The danger is living a life so careful, so protected, so clueless, that you might as well have been dead the whole time. You arrive at death with an unused life.
So the final instruction from this wild stack of sources seems clear. Tape your mouth tonight. Audit your weak ties this week. Practice the air hunger breath. And remember that the software is going to keep running long after the hardware fails.
So make sure it's a program you actually want to live with. Forever.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you in the next one.
Safe travel.